everybody. Welcome into Business Salad, where we mix up all things business for you for free. We are your hosts, Stevie and Laura. Laura, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Happy hump day.
Hump day. How was work?
Well, work was good, still in training. I'm in a new role.
Ooh, wait a minute. What are
I
we going to
know.
be talking about today? I
I think
know.
I think we need to talk about being in a new role because you are too.
I know. I am too. I sure think we do. So this episode is definitely going to be for anybody that has transitioned to a new role, either in their company, maybe to an external company. Maybe you've transitioned from being at home to being in the workforce. Maybe vice versa. Actually, what if you went from the workforce to being at home? I've done that
Mhm.
before. That's tough.
Right.
Yep. So, how about your new role, Laura? What did your shift look like?
So this time in my career, I shifted to a new role inside the same company because I love my company. But I have gone from being a customer facing leader with a team and a branch and those type of responsibilities to business development and so forth. Very outgoing type of a position, multifaceted for sure. And I have moved into a behind the scenes role, so it's complete flip. I am not the boss anymore. I will not be interacting with customers face to face on a daily basis any longer. So a lot of things, totally have changed. In addition, the things that I'm doing in my new role are pretty much nothing that I've ever done before. There's some aspects that carry over, but it's completely like it's all new. I'm a baby. I just got born into a
That's
new facet
right.
of the workplace.
So then with that being said, what do you feel is the most difficult part about the transition to a new role?
Well, for me, because of my type A personality, and you can relate because we have very similar personalities, I don't like feeling off kilter where I'm not the person that has the answers or that can confidently find the answers for someone. So that makes me feel, all the things that make me feel confident, my knowledge, my background, my experience, kind of my feel for the position, like I can, use my instincts. I don't have any instincts right now, and I don't have any knowledge, and everything's, being presented to me, and it's all brand new. It's new flavors. So how about for you in your new role? Tell us a little bit about what's going on with you.
Yes, so I transitioned as Laura did to a different role within the same company. I did go into a higher seniority role. So I went from being a part of a team to leading a team. And it's very exciting. But much like you, I struggle with the same thing. I don't like saying, I don't know. That just stinks. I like having the answers. I like feeling confident in the information that I'm giving out. So it has been in the past year and a half, having transitioned to a new industry, being a lot of I don't know, because you don't want to give bad information. So no matter what, you don't make up the answer. It's just, I don't know. I'll find the answer. I'll get back to you. And my personality type, that is very, very difficult. So it is something that I struggle with, but I learn something new every day. I learned several new things today, areas of the industry that I have not had exposure to. So it was a good day. And I love learning. So I do not fear taking on new roles. I just, I don't know, stinks.
Well, it does. And I would like to say though, what I know about you, I've known you for about a year and a half now. I don't know if I have my timeline right. From whenever you came into my industry from completely different industries, but you definitely, as you said, you do not have a fear of taking a leap into something else that's interesting to you or that can grow you in some way. You kind of been a jack of all trades in your career. However, there's like these threads that make sense for the next things that you go into. So like, in our industry, I've seen you kind of pull from all the things that you've done, from your security background, from your realtor background, from an insurance background, from your social media background. Like, I think I remember the day where you were like, oh yeah, I used to manage the social media for a women's football team. And I'm like, because of course you did. Why wouldn't you? So, but all those things, like, do you feel like those have been building blocks for a transition into any role?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are a lot of transferable skills there. And shout out to the Silver State Legacy girls. Still remember you. Yes, I was the marketing director for them. And that was fun. So, but I do think that, not just all the life experience, you can take that, you really become a melting pot of all of those experiences, but making sure that you have those transferable skills. So once you really hone the development in, for example, customer facing roles, that really can travel with you wherever you go. So folks, if you're not familiar, when we say that the skills are transferable, that just means that you go from one industry to another, but you carry that skill set with you. It will be applicable in the next role. So that's what we mean when we say that.
Well, I think often, people think like they're trying to put like with like. Okay, it's like, oh, I've done this in my life, or my, degree is in XYZ, or, my family always wanted me to be this. So you try to kind of make those moves into that very shoehorned, type of path, not thinking with that more outside the box mind of like, okay, instead of me trying to match this for this each time, what are the things I love the most about what I'm currently doing? Or what are my skills? What am I really, really strong in? And what else can I do with that? I think sometimes we count ourselves out of roles. We're looking through a job board, or we're hearing from a networking peer or from a family member about something cool coming up. You're like, oh, I'd really like to do that, but I don't think I have the skill set for that. So they probably wouldn't want me. So like, how do you think someone can overcome that fear?
So I feel like this is something that we talked about in a previous episode where we talked about confidence versus competence. Do you remember that episode?
I
Yes.
do. I loved it.
So just as a recap for everybody, what we discussed is that women tend to have high competence but low confidence when talking about the workforce, applying for different positions. So typically women want to meet pretty much all of the criteria of a role in which they're applying for, whereas their male counterparts tend to be satisfied. This is statistically proven. If they meet even just a quarter of those guidelines or requirements in there, because they feel like they are adaptable and they can do it and they have the confidence to apply for that. So I think when we're talking about that, especially ladies, like, you really just have to have faith that you are capable of so much more than you realize. And don't be afraid to go for gold, because the worst that can happen is no. And also, I think we really need to look at the interview process as a learning experience. If you're turned down for a role, I strongly encourage you to reach out and ask why if they don't offer you that feedback. And take that feedback and use it to your advantage as you move forward. And also, as you're reflecting on your strengths and how that can go to different areas, also look at the areas where you could develop. And can you get yourself into a role that will allow for that development, so you really become more holistic and well-rounded?
I like that. And, I like that advice about, as you're interviewing, to ask, okay, I know you didn't pick me. How can I develop myself or to be better prepared for next time? What can I work on? Because, putting ego aside, and sometimes our ego, it's sensitive. So not knowing what we're doing in a new role, being nervous in an interview, not getting picked, feeling, kind of taking that, internalizing it like, it's a popularity thing, when really it's not a no, it's a not now in a lot of cases.
Right.
So, to mend our little fragile egos and to keep ourselves on the track. Once you get past that interview process and you've, made that choice to make that big change, in your life, now you're in the role. How are you overcoming the things you were scared of? What's your steps? What's your process as you take that on to get yourself to that oh, I'm comfortable. I'm doing this now.
So I think the most important thing is to allow yourself grace. So when I entered this role, I was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, not just about new aspects of the role as far as what am I responsible for driving as far as sales, metrics, things like that, because that has shifted, but also operationally, what are things now that I have to, take on that I didn't before. But what's hard for me as a self-proclaimed perfectionist is allowing myself grace. I just tell myself it's okay if you don't know. It's okay if things slip through the cracks. Like, it's fine. Especially if you're not going through a formal onboarding process and it's really just kind of loosey goosey. Maybe it's a little non-traditional. Really just remember that it's a learning curve. There's a change curve there for everybody involved, especially if there's a team.
Sure.
Make sure you involve everybody in that. Don't try to protect yourself and isolate yourself. Really, really be vulnerable. Lead with vulnerability. Let your team know you don't know, but you're willing to find out. Maybe you guys are learning together. And that's always a great team building and bonding experience, to be able to discover answers and things together. But then also just really set aside time for yourself to learn. Try to prioritize that, because I think when we go into a new role, we get so inundated with tasks. Do this, do that. You really have to be intentional with your time around learning. And it may not just look like, I need to learn how to get access to this system. I need to learn how to use this scheduling tool. I'm talking about deeper learning than that. And it may look like leadership. It may look like a variety of other things. So make sure that you prioritize that for yourself. Even when you feel like you don't have time, I bet you can find 30 minutes in your day.
Well, yes. I mean, you carve that out for sure. You set that as an appointment for yourself.
Correct.
It's kind of like what they say, whenever you get your paycheck, pay yourself first, meaning put money away for retirement, put money in your savings, don't even touch it, don't even look at it. Well, in your current role, if you change your role, whatever it may be, how are you prioritizing that time to make sure that you can be the best that you can be in that role?
Exactly.
And I think too, something I've always said, and I've been a team lead, I've been a team member, under a leader in an organization, whatever it may be. But I've always said, whenever I've changed into a role or someone's looking to me for an answer and they're like, but your title says you should know this answer. My thing is, I've never proclaimed, just because I got a certain job or whatever it may be, that all of a sudden I had a new brain put in my head. I downloaded some information from the cloud. Nobody understands the cloud. It just means that it's showing that I have the potential to do this position. I'm being hired based on what I can do, not on what I already know. So you have to remind yourself of that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited you said that. You totally hit the nail on the head. I'm going to repeat that for anybody that didn't hear it the first time around. The title that you are given is your potential. You build to that. You work towards that. They do not put you into a new role and think that you're supposed to know everything when you wake up tomorrow. It's okay.
And tell yourself that for quite a while. I mean, it's not going to be 3 days. It's not going to be 2 weeks. Every day you're going to kind of get a little bit better. I'm training right now, and I have another person that's training with me. We're in the same role. And she's like, she says to me, I just feel like I'm a smart person, but maybe people aren't getting that right now. And I was like, listen, if we leave every day and we've learned 1 or 2 things that we didn't know yesterday, it builds, because that's how it sticks in your head too. Yes. So, I think I have been guilty of pushing myself and making myself basically sick over, I'm not learning quick enough. I'm not learning quick. It's been 6 hours. How do I not know how to do brain surgery? And, it's just that those little bits. And then the next day you're like, I remember this. Okay. And now this leads to this. So set a timeline, maybe go to your new supervisor, your new manager, whatever it may be, your team lead, and say, realistically, how quickly do you need me to be at this place or at that place? Like, what are some standards? It's okay to ask that. And you don't necessarily have to be the fastest person. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's like, how can I get to where I need to be in the timeline you feel that I should,
Right.
but in a way that truly makes sure that I'm getting all the nuances of what
Yeah.
I'm doing?
And I feel like when you ask that, the timeline that they give you is going to surprise you because we
Yes.
are our own worst critic. We're our own worst enemy. For example, today I had a discussion with my new boss, and I let her know that I was going to have something submitted to her before the deadline. I had just gotten access to something I needed to do that. And she's like, you don't have to do that. Like, I have zero expectation for you to do that. And I'm like, no, it's cool. I got it. Like, it's good. I have the expectation on myself to get that done. And then something just a week prior, I think I'd been in the role like a day, might have been that day. And I was like, oh, I didn't know about this. I'm so sorry. I'll go do it right now. And she's like, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I'm talking to me, so yeah, just make sure that you do. I love that advice. Make sure that you actually have that conversation so you know what those expectations look like, because yours are probably harsher than theirs.
Well, and that's a sign too. I mean, you have a good leader.
Yes.
And she's, very reasonable with her expectations and wants you to fully like kind of marinate in the beginning part, which is tricky,
Yeah.
And I think that's great advice to like think about in your leadership role. And of course, I know you, so like I'm preaching to the choir, but you might have someone coming in under you at some point that they're like, okay, I've been a stay-at-home mother for the last 18 years, or I am fresh out of college, or what, I used to own a small company of my own, but now I'm looking to come into your industry. I'm scared, but I think I can do it. I know I can do it. I have the passion for it, so it's like, how can we like help someone, on our team or a peer? How can we help them and support them through that really scary time? Because once we're settled, we'll be like, oh, we're settled in our roles. Like, we're all old hats at this. But then how do we pay it forward to the next people?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that truly is a sign of a great leader, being able to put yourself out there and really help those that need it, because it's not, it's managing tasks, but leading people. And that's so important. And I think about like back to the security days, when a security is an entry level position. So you get a lot of recent high school graduates. They don't know what they're doing. Their moms are coming in, picking up their uniforms, or calling to see if they can pick up their paycheck, and it's like really truly a growth process for them into adulthood, not just into a new role or a new industry or the workforce or whatever, but it's a whole, a well-rounded growth opportunity. And so I do think that's important. You have to realize that most people are afraid, and most people are afraid of change. Some people just hide it better than others do. But remember that we're all just people. We're not robots. And your best day is going to look, the best that you can do is going to look different each day. Some days your best is, I got here today. I didn't call out. I'm not feeling in the best mood, but I'm here. I'm going to get through it as best I can. That might be that day's best. The next day might be, I had 20 sales today. Oh, I'm the best.
Yeah.
So it's just give yourself some grace and give those around you some grace.
For sure. And I think, there are folks that love to do the same thing their entire life because they love it that much, and they have no desire to kind of go out of that box at all. And that is fine and great.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I definitely would encourage anyone who maybe is 15 years into a job, 20 years into a job, 3 years into a job they don't, love completely, but it's safe. Like, let's push our boundaries a little bit. Let's think about, how can we transition bravely and, take a chance on ourselves. We get one life. You don't get any do-overs necessarily. I guess depends on what you believe, but, how can we make sure that it's not fear holding us back?
Right. That's right. Because the biggest opportunities your biggest growth generally lies on the other side of fear. So the more afraid you are, and when you're able to overcome that, generally that's when you experience the most growth. Growth is uncomfortable. The comfort zone is a trap. It's a trap.
Get out. Chew your leg off.
That's right. Exactly. So yeah, just remember that the discomfort is temporary, and you generally never regret having tried something, but you almost always regret not having tried it. You know, if you've tried it and said, I don't like it, maybe it's broccoli. I don't know. You know, oh, I don't know. That looks
And your
weird.
business salad. A little
Trait.
broccoli business
A little
salad.
butter on it, a little salt and pepper. Man, this is great. You know, but maybe you don't like it. Well, okay, you don't like it. You move on. You don't regret that you tried it for the rest of your life. You just know that you did and it wasn't for you.
Well, and you take those lessons and into the next role. That's okay.
Right.
Like you know, everywhere you're going, you're picking up little seeds, you know,
Yes.
and that's your garden. That's, you know, whatever. But it's every person you meet knows something you don't know. You know, everything that you do that wasn't successful is what makes you successful later. You know, every, you know, tear you cried out of frustration is, again, what kind of grows that garden for you. So, just to
Who
everybody out there, you know.
who here in the room has cried because they've been frustrated or upset or whatever at work?
Should I raise both hands? Like, you know.
I feel like we should. Like, it's okay, folks. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay. Just take a step back, breathe, maybe ask for help. Like, that's normal. It's okay. Everybody does. It doesn't matter how confident they seem. Sometimes we're just ducks. We're very calm on the top and we're totally psychotic on the bottom. Exactly. Just paddling to stay alive. But yeah.
So find a peer, find a mentor.
Yes.
You know, have a friend, you know, to lend an ear, whatever that may be. Like, you've got to have that support system. Yeah, I mean, like, literally anything that makes you feel like it's your safe place. But, you know, I mean, certainly as you're doing something new, and again, whatever that looks like, you know, find someone that's already done it and can be your guide through that forest.
Yes, you find your Sherpa.
Yes, for sure.
And I do want to just underscore what you said about everybody that you meet knows something you don't. I think that especially if you're in a customer facing position, we all know that that can be very challenging. There are days where the public is challenging. Some days I am the challenging public. You know, it just depends. So I think that keeping that mindset that, okay, this person is experiencing something a certain way. What can I learn from this? What can they teach me? Whether it's about that particular instance or something else. I don't know. Maybe you learned about the Waffle House Index today. If you want to know what that is, you got to look it up. I learned about it this morning. But, you know, everybody that you meet knows something you don't. And I really love that. That's one of my favorite sayings. So good job, Laura.
Every once in a while.
That's right.
Oh, I have one final thought too.
Yeah.
So one of my managers, my new managers, in the interview process, I was like, what should I be most prepared for if I were to take on this role? And they said, you are going to doubt yourself early on. You're gonna be like, what did I do? Because you're going to feel so off of your game.
Right.
Keep going. She's like, you know, I've been through it. So-and-so has been through it, because, you know, coming from similar backgrounds to me. And she said, when you feel like that, just know, keep going. And I promise you, you're not going to regret it.
There will be light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. And I think that applies to anything. That's not specific to this. That applies to anything that you're doing, you know. And I'm thinking earlier in the conversation when you said people maybe are transitioning back to the home for what, maybe you're going to be a caregiver, maybe it's whatever it may be, you know, you're going to be with the kids, you're going to homeschool, you're going to whatever. And I mean, there's going to be days where you're like, oh my gosh, how can I do this?
Yes.
How can I keep going forward with this? And it's like, but one day you won't be thinking that. So just know that you're always going to get to that place where you're like, I did it. And now I have a sustainable, you know, process and pattern, and I feel confident.
And you're not alone. You know, sometimes it can feel very lonely and isolating when you feel like you're the only one going through that. You're definitely not. And also know that not every decision has to be the right one. So it's okay that it wasn't the right decision, you know, especially when you're talking about like school choice. not everything is for everybody. And I can tell you that when I was homeschooling my 2 older children, this is our 15th year homeschooling. Yeah, I know. When it was the first kindergarten year of my oldest child, I was so hard on myself and I was so hard on her. And I made both of our lives way more difficult than they needed to be. So once I got to the point, especially like with the younger boys now, I have way more realistic standards. I am able to give myself and them some grace. I have very loosely set goals that I'm like, cool, we'll make those. If we don't, it's fine. We'll figure it out. It's not trauma surgery. You've got this, you can figure it out. So
That applies across the board, everything.
yeah,
You've got
absolutely.
this.
You've got this. Oh, I like it. Let's end it there. You've got this.
You got this. Good job.
All right, everybody. Well, I hope you enjoyed our chat tonight. I sure did, Laura. Thank you so much.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, you too. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their evening. And we'll see you on the next episode of Business Salad.